Ni hao, Jill Stephanie. Hi, ho, hum. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. It's New Year's Eve, and I hope everybody's doing great. And no matter what you celebrate during this time of year, I really hope that you have had a sane, comfortable, and if you wish, happy time of year. I don't know. I don't know what to wish people anymore. The holidays in Shanghai have just gotten very, very, very strange, and I don't even know what to make of it anymore. So I will wish you a happy Western New Year, a happy calendar New Year, and a happy 2019. We're only a few hours away from the New Year here in Shanghai, and then the rest of you will be joining us later. We're ahead of you. All right, hey, I wanted to do a quick update. At the end of this update video, first I'm going to do two things. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to get organized. The first thing I'm going to do is give you an update on my studying, as loosey-goosey as it is right now. And the second thing is I was in a Korean restaurant last night, and I realized that the menu was in Chinese, and which it is a lot of times in China. If not bilingual, there's usually Chinese. But the interesting thing is that I actually recognized some of the words and phrases on that menu, which doesn't usually happen to me because I have spent zero time learning food words. I thought I was going to spend some time on that after HSK 3, but honestly I can eat just fine without doing that, so I'm still going to grab for the media vocabulary in the HSKs that I'm dealing with, so I'm still not going to focus on that. So it was very, very interesting that I actually found some words and phrases that I think I recognized, and I'm going to attach that video to the end of this video. So that's the second thing. But first, okay, so I'm still reviewing HSK 1 and 2. HSK 3 is sitting in a pile, and I don't feel like I'm ready to revisit that yet. So that'll probably happen in January or possibly February. Because like I said, starting in January, I'm also going to do one chapter of HSK for a month. A month. That is way slower than before. I'm still going to keep going with HSK 1 and 2 reviews as often or not often as I feel like I need to. I did chapter 9 in HSK 2 yesterday. Chapter 9. And because I was going slower, there's so much stuff that kind of came out of my brain that I didn't have the time to do before when I was rushing for a test. My next test is probably December of 2020. Honestly, the HSK 4 test. I'm not rushing to this one. HSK 3 was a rush to get familiar, a rush to start reading, a rush to get some basic vocabulary. Got there. There's a lot that I missed, which is why I'm going over it now and adding on some things that I kind of lost along the way because I needed to prioritize. So, some of the things that came up is that I noticed I really have been underutilizing the titles. Like one of the grammar points in this chapter is in the title. Now that makes sense. Of course it does. And this is one of the things I like about this course book. And I'm still surprised as an ex-language teacher, I'm still surprised that I like a course book this much. So I made a note. Oh, let me show you my note. Of how I'm reviewing. It's just a post-it, but it's at the beginning. I don't think you're going to see that correctly. But it's 5 steps that I'm going to do to review each time I touch one of these review books. And it's probably going to be similar to... Now, actually, the new stuff is going to be very different because I won't be moving around as much in the book. So step 1 is the vocabulary in the back. There's an entire list of vocabulary in the back of the book for the entire book. Since this is a review, I can actually go through and cover up everything except the Hansa and kind of quiz myself that way. Probably in lieu of flashcards, to be honest with you. Number 2 is chapter titles. And yes, I'll address the Lightner box later, I suppose, maybe. I don't know, maybe. I haven't quite figured it out yet, so I'm not sure what's happening with that. Number 2 is chapter titles, which I just showed you. Number 3 is the vocab in the chapter. Again, cover up everything except the Hansa characters, which is basically just the word. I can probably, at this point in the stage, stop saying Hansa characters because it's just the word in Chinese. I cover up everything except the word. Cover up the pinyin, cover up the English, cover up the definition, just to see if I remember it. Number 4 is the grammar points in the chapter, and number 5 is to do the listening in the chapter. Now the grammar points in the chapter, I highlight and I write all over. And then the listening in the chapter, in this particular chapter, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see kind of how many notes I wrote on it yesterday. I actually didn't even have the course book. This is the course book, not the workbook. I didn't even realize there was a course book when I took HSK 1. I was working on the workbook and wondering where all the information was. But it was easy enough that I was able to piece things together without having the course book. In HSK 2, I didn't pay attention to the grammar points, but I did look at... I didn't look at the listening. What the hell did I do? I did the vocabulary matching at the beginning. I remember that. So I did this part. I didn't generally do the collocational stuff at the bottom because that's a lot of productive stuff, and I'm doing much more with receptive stuff right now. Now that is shifting in 2019. But when I first did HSK2, I was just reading, just absorbing. I don't think I actually did that. I might have glanced at the grammar points, but I definitely didn't do any of the role play. I didn't do most of the book. So I think what I ended up doing, because I think I showed you this, is I put the workbook pages on top and for that chapter, and I tore out all of the chapters, and I put the workbook pages on top and the course book on the bottom, and I used the course book as a reference. This time when I'm going through most of the stuff in the chapters as a review, but as you know, with language learning, as with most learning, it's not just a review. I'm learning so much stuff. And since I have a little bit of practical Chinese, very little, and a lot of listening from HSKs 1 to 3, there are things that are coming up that I hadn't expected. For example, in one of the listenings, if you're taking HSK 2, this is chapter 9, listening number 2, it's track 9-2, it's in the school. Zai shu shui shui shu. I can never say this. So many sounds. Shui shui shu shui. Dear God. Shui shi, which I'm still not saying right. Yay, go tones. All right. So in that dialogue, one of the mother of the little girl that wants to take the dance class from the dance teacher that the parent's talking to, says, Mei wen ti, which means no problem. And my brain, because I had the headspace to be able to connect accidentally to things I've heard before, was like, well, what's the difference between Mei wen ti and Mei guan shi? And I just wrote it in the side here. I know it seems simple, not the answer, but to just have that question, but I went so fast through, and no regrets, but I went so fast through HSKs 1 through 3 that I didn't really have a lot of time to write these kinds of questions down. So the fact that started coming out was kind of cool to me, and it really made me realize that slowing down and constantly reviewing is a good thing. This is the second time I've reviewed HSK2 materials. When I was going through HSK 3, I was also consequently reviewing HSK 2, and I plan to keep doing this until that vocabulary, until those grammar points are pretty, no kidding, like pretty super easy to me. There's no point in not reviewing stuff that I already have, materials I have. So I thought that was an interesting thing. Something else I didn't realize before is when you say in listening number 3 at home, which is Zai Jali, 9.3, if you've got the listening, in that conversation, they talk about next Monday, and they say Sha, the one that's like under, and this is where time gets really weird, because under means future, whereas Shang, like Shanghai, like on, means past. Or last Monday. Okay, for example, and excuse my tones, Shaga Xing Qi Yi. Xing Qi Yi is Monday, with proper tones it might be Monday, and Shaga is next Monday. Shanga Xing Qi Yi is last Monday. And this is really hard for me because I think of Shang on to be next, but it's last. And this is something I definitely did not pick up on the first two rounds of going through, first round of going through HSK2 and first round of reviewing HSK2. And again, I got to write that in here. That's something that's not the main grammar point, it's not the main vocabulary, but it's in here, and that's useful. I don't have a lot of useful vocabulary. Yay! So I do find myself, now that I'm thinking about it, I do find myself picking up more on phrases than on individual vocabulary, which I did not have the comfort level and the headspace for the first two times through HSK2. So this is kind of a new thing for me. Am I going to remember all of these? Oh, heck no. That's why I'm going to continue to review them. But I was really, really happy with this. The last thing which I think is really funny, and I don't care so much about the answers to the questions that I'm bringing up, so if you want to answer in the comment section, feel free to, but I really, truly don't care what the answers are yet. It's more about the questions that are coming out that's important to me, and as I go through the book, I'll eventually review and get to the point where I'll know the answer, and I'll write it in myself, and that'll be fine. And if I never know the answer to some of these, I don't care either. It's about the process. I know that drives some of you crazy, and I'm really, really sorry, but that's how my brain works, so... The last thing I want to point out, which I think is really interesting, is that, and this is one that I kept saying to my husband, I can't believe it's taken me this long to realize this, because I hear it when I heard my Chinese students using English, I used to get frustrated, not always and not visibly to them, because they didn't answer yes or no questions. When we ask, like, did you eat lunch? Did you see the new homework? Or I don't know, any lame question you would ask, like yes or no question. In English, we generally say, yes, I did, or yes, or no, or we would answer the yes or no part first, and then maybe expand out, and maybe not. I don't think that's true in Chinese, and I think I had a major resistance from, we call it L1 interference, when your first language, English, interferes with learning your second language, in this case, Chinese. Technically it's my third, but honestly I'm probably way past where I was in Spanish, so I don't know. Another language, let's just say. So it's definitely L1 interference, because in this is conversation 4, in the, what is this, in the what is that, the classroom or test room? I think that's classroom, right? Zai Kaoshu, it's a 9.4 if you have the HSK 4 standard course textbook. In this conversation, it's two students basically decompressing after a test, and one of them says, again, my tones are off. Ni do ting dong lama. Wait, ni do ting dong lama. Basically, you all understand. Did you understand all of it? And the answer, so did you understand all of it? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Oh, hell no. The answer is ting dong lo. Understand. The answer is understand, not yes. Understand. I've heard this kind of answer, or I did hear when I was teaching, I did hear the kind of answer so often from my students, and I'm like, why are you using the verb? It's a yes or no question. Now, granted, with my students, their course books for their language learning should have instilled this habit in English, so they should have learned how to answer those questions in English, just like I'm supposed to be learning how to answer these questions commonly in Chinese. However, I have been saying yes or no in Mandarin when people ask me yes or no questions instead of saying the verb. So I've been doing the very same thing that my students were doing. Naughty! Naughty, naughty, naughty. Now, is this true? Oops. Is this true in general? When you ask a yes or no question in Chinese, do you answer with the verb? Or, for example, if I didn't understand, would I say bu ting dong le, probably, right? I guess. I don't know. I don't know. So, is this a pattern? Or is this an exception? I think it's an exception that I have been blocking out with my first language habit. My first language pattern. I'm used to yes or no questions being answered with yes or no. And I've been bringing that into Chinese from the moment that I heard my first Mandarin Chinese said to me, not just around me, when I moved to Taiwan in 2003. Now, I haven't been constantly exposed since 2003, It's been very, very on and off. But yeah, I've been answering dui and wondering what no was for a very long time. This is making so much sense now because I just realized, like, I've kind of been wondering how to say no. Like, I know how to say I don't have, I don't want, like, I don't need, like, buyao. Okay, fine. Don't want, don't need, don't have, wait, no, that's don't need, don't have. I don't even remember at this point. I'm just thinking I know, like, little ways to say no, but I don't know just no, like I know just yes. And I also saw somewhere recently where somebody said, oh, just say dui, and somebody else said, but dui means good, not yes. So I don't even know if dui means yes anymore. There's an issue with analyzing the language too much, isn't there? It's not going to stop my usage. My usage is just low. But I think it's kind of fun, finally, after a lot of vocabulary stuffing into my head, that I finally can slow down, review this stuff, and come back in a way that lets me play with it, compare it to other things that I've heard and seen in and out of the textbooks. So part of the exposure of living in China is finally seeping in, although honestly, it's probably mostly from the listening in the textbooks. I have Shanghaiese and Putonghua around me, standard Mandarin Chinese around me, and I still can recognize words. I generally can't recognize. Okay, no, to be fair, I can recognize phrases because I do hear like bujidao, which is like I don't know. No, it's not like, it is I don't know. I hear that all the time. Ever since I first saw that in a listening, I can hear it everywhere. Somebody can be having a 30-minute conversation sitting next to me, not talking, like not just near me, like a cafe or restaurant or something, and I'll recognize no words, and then suddenly they'll say bujidao, and I'll go, I know that phrase. So there's little bits that I'll recognize, but in general it's mostly like single words and some phrases. Yeah, so there's that. But that's better than when I first started. And those single words are super clear. We were walking through a mall yesterday, and I kid you not, somebody said, and I can't say it right yet, chu su chu, like taxi, and I turned around, like kind of shockingly, and went, ah, and my husband looked at me like, what just happened? And I'm like, oh, nothing, I just heard that woman said taxi. And he's like, and? Well, just, I heard it clear as a bell. Like, it was only one word in the sentence she was saying, and that word just kind of leapt out at me and slapped me in the face like, you've heard that 1,000,000 times. So that happened. But generally it's words, some phrases. So I imagine that will continue to grow with time and exposure. I did make a study calendar for the first half of 2019. Other than HSK, one chapter per month. I don't know how well I'm going to stick to my review schedule. I don't know. We'll see what happens. As long as I'm getting fairly frequent exposure, I truly don't care. I don't know. Nor am I going to go to the authentic materials that I was thinking I would go off to. I have grown to really like these HSK materials, and they're doing things that authentic materials have never done for me in any language. They give me those moments of clarity that I generally don't have. And in going through and reviewing a few times, a level far lower than the tests I've just taken, I'm getting things now that I didn't get before. So it's working, it's just very slow, but that seems to be my pace. So I'm going to keep going with the inauthentic materials. HSK4. Starting with the lower one and then working with the upper one. They're put into 2 books, 10 chapters each. So it's still just 20 chapters. I don't know the difference in the chapters yet. I haven't actually opened the book. Should I do that in front of you? It's like, it's not an unboxing. It's a book opening. This is a book opening. This is like the world's longest update video. No, it's not. I've done much longer. Okay, I'll do a quick thing. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The other ones were usually 4 to 6 pages. 7, 8, 9, 10. Already I can tell you it's longer. 12, 13. Wow, that's a lot longer. So it still has the vocabulary with pictures at the beginning. I appreciate they didn't get rid of that. They have more collocational stuff at the bottom of that page. They have 1, 2, only 3 listening, but they are substantially longer. And just with the Chinese language, no pinyin, no interlanguage in there at all. But they do still have it below, so they still do have that there, and I appreciate that now, because although I can read some graded texts in very simple Chinese, it still hurts my head to only read words in Chinese. I don't know if that's ever going to pass. I hope it does. And then they've got grammar points. There's only 2. No, there's 3. There might be more than 3. Hold on. No, 3 grammar points. Okay, so they're not expanding out too far. In HSK 1, 2, and 3, they had either 2, then they built up to 3, and some chapters had 3 grammar points, some chapters had 4. So I'm glad they're keeping it manageable. Oh, okay. So that's weird. So they usually have the listening, then the grammar points, and in this chapter 1 of HSK 4, they have 3 listenings, the grammar points, then 2 more listenings, then a 4th grammar point, and then the smaller exercises, then the fill in the blank with these words kinds of things. We're still doing some character things, some drills, some pair work. Okay, so the biggest difference is there's more listening, and they split the listening up. So that's actually not a huge difference. I can see this actually working out just fine. So I'm fully prepared by HSK 4. I have the course book, I have the workbook, and so I don't have to pay someone to give me answers because they don't have all the answers in the transcripts. I have the teacher's book, which I'm told has the answers in it. We'll see how that goes. It's completely and utterly in Chinese. There's no pinyin in the teacher's book, as there probably shouldn't be since it's for the teacher. But it's a bit intimidating to my brain. And I have the transcripts. I only have chapter 1 printed out right now because that's going to take me the entire month of January, if not longer. So, yeah. There we go. I am ready. I don't start until next Sunday, but I wanted to make sure I had all the materials ready. I'm going to do the flashcards this week. I am still doing new flashcards a week or 2 before the chapter starts, so when I start doing the listening, I'm at least somewhat familiar with the vocabulary that I'm doing. That is something that I did find really, really helpful in the previous levels of HSK, and I'm going to continue doing it. The big question with the flashcards is, what do I do after that chapter's over? I'm done looking at stuff, so I can take those off. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I still have all of my HSK 1, 2, and 3 flashcards over there, and this is a giant, giant, giant pile. Part of me wants to do, because right now I have the Hansa to English side, and the English side has pinyin on it, so I can't just flip it around and try to then turn it into a productive thing where I look at the English and try to produce the Chinese. So I would need to make a whole new multiple sets of flashcards for that if I want to. I don't know how productive that is since I'm reviewing the audio and the writings for HSKs 1, 2, and 3. I have a feeling in context at this point is much more useful. So I might very well go through and throw out the super obvious cards, and maybe I'll just occasionally review the flashcards that are not. I don't really know what I'm going to do with those. But for the new ones, I definitely am going to make them, because that really helped. I'm going to review them a lot the first week or 2, and then I'll do something with them. Maybe. And I'll probably make Chinese to English, English to Chinese version so that I can be more productive with my language than just recognizing, because I think that's something I want to work on in 2019. It may not come out in massive speaking form, because that's not really where I lay. I mean, that's not where I pitch my tent. I'm much more introverted than I ever thought, and this process has really, really brought that home for me. But yeah, I definitely want to be able to say things and be able to think of things as they're happening. I'll leave you with a thought, and there is still the video of the the menu from last night's restaurant. But I want to leave you with one story before we go into that. And we were in the elevator last night, and this like teenage, he probably wasn't a teenager. This 20-year-old man in our apartment building was coming up the floors with us, and he looks at my husband, who has this full, beautiful beard, and he must have said, I don't know the word for beard or anything, but he did this hand gesture and said something positive because he was like smiling and like admiring his beard, and then he's kind of like looking, and he's like pointing to these little whiskers and saying like, I'm guessing, saying, I can't do it, I can't grow it, you're so lucky. And the second he walked, I mean, my husband kind of mimed his way through it, and it was a cute exchange. And then the second, and I was thinking, oh, I know how to say, like, there's this funny thing I want to say right now that would fit this mood, and and I could practice some of my language, and I couldn't think of any of the words, like I couldn't form the sentence while he was there, and he got off at a lower floor than we did, and the second he stepped off the elevator, I thought of it. It's so simple. It's not even a lot of words. It was just, I wanted to say, Han Lao. Not even Ta Han Lao, because they pro up like crazy, so I don't even need to. We know we're talking about him. I just wanted to say he's old. This is why he can grow this, because he's old. When you get old, you'll be able to grow one too. It's total bullshit, but it would have been funny. And the second that he walked out of the elevator, it came into my brain. So was that the inability to remember the words at that very moment? Because those are two very, very common words. Han is very, Lao is old, Laosha is teacher. I mean, I know these words up one side and down the other, but I couldn't put them together when all of this was happening because there was that pressure. And also, would it have been funny for him? I doubt it, but I would have been able to produce something as opposed to just smiling and pointing. It will come. It will come with time. The fact that it happened just after he left instead of like an hour later is already progress. Or like the next day. Like that's what used to happen like a year ago, is some word would come into my mind much, 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 much later. So I mean, it's faster. And I haven't even been working on my productive skills, to be honest with you. I've been listening, I've been reading, I've been listening. I don't speak a lot because I suck at it, and I don't like doing it with the 600 words that I have. It's not very interesting vocabulary yet. So I haven't been practicing it, and it's gotten better, which is a beautiful side thing, side goal, side something. See? It's not just Chinese. I can't think of words a lot of the times. This is what happens. This is the human brain. This is the human brain on end of the year thoughts. Anyway, like I said, Happy New Year's, and I always think of the first place in Asia that I spent on New Year's, granted it was Lunar New Year's, no, it was both actually, was Taiwan, but then I was in Vietnam for 3 years. So the first thing I think of when I think of New Year's, it's Chok Mu Nam Moi, which I'm probably saying wrong anyway, which is Happy New Year's in Vietnamese. So, Xing Ling Kuai Le. There we go. That's the one in Chinese. Xing Ling Kuai Le. Happy New Year. And yeah, I'll see you in 2019. 再见.